It is my immense pleasure to facilitate to these very distinguished panelists over here. So, while we are talking about the managing Nepal's strategic rivalry, sometimes like things happened. So एउटा समय र परिवेशले गर्दाखेरि कहिले यस्तो कन्फरेन्स म्यानेज गर्ने कुराहरू आफैमा असहज हुन जान्छ। सो यो परिप्रेक्ष्यमा चाहिँ यो दुईटा सेसनलाई कम्पाइल गरेर एउटैमा राख्ने र त्यो हिसाबले अगाडि बढ्दाखेरि हाम्रो टाइम पनि सकिनुहुन्छ भन्ने हिसाबले त्यो आइडियाहरू चाहिँ लगाएका छौँ। सो I'll be moderating about the session 5, which deals about the discourse of foreign policy ruling, which basically talks about the Nepal's aspirations being vibrant based from above state reality. And in recent foreign policy discourse, the trilateral cooperation is also taking momentum. So, how Nepal can effectively interlink internationally proposed connectivity proposal while examining the discourse from like technical, security and other economic dimensions. So this may be more or less supportive sessions to the earlier. We talk about the managing geostrategic rivalry between our two immediate neighbors. So the trilateral cooperations may be, as argued by some scholars, the pragmatic foreign policy approach for detecting the geostrategic rivalry of Nepal's two immediate neighbors. So having said that, I'll just like to move with the panelists for these sessions. Professor Madhukar Rana is the former special advisor of MOFA and former finance minister. I can see the very vibrant energy that Professor Madhukar Rana has. While we are talking about the Nepal's aspirations being a vibrant bridge between these economic giants, and we do have a very vibrant intellectual that is who is like continuously engaging this sort of intellectual debate. So it is my immense pleasure to start with him to share his remarks about the Nepal's aspirations being vibrant bridge between these two economic giants and the possibility of trilateral cooperation, basically from the economic dimensions. So, and we'll be following this debate with like security and other issues. So, I'd like to focus him basically from the economic perspective to put his remarks forward. So, I'd like to welcome Professor Madhukar Rana for his remarks. Thank you.
But for historical reasons, I wish to first underscore that it was in 2005, in the 2005 budget, that Nepal officially adopted the strategic idea to be a transit economy. This was when former King Yanendra was ruling. While others spoke about it, it was he, the very first leader, to make it actionable. He took this historic step, envisioning the strong interest of China to use Sikkim's Int'l Pass, just 425 miles from Lhasa, for access to the Bay of Bengal. It was nevertheless perceived that the Int'l Pass was inaccessible in winter, lying at an altitude of 4,290 meters. Also, for security reasons, over the chicken's neck, which we are all familiar with, it was believed that transit through Raswagari would be, in the final strategic analysis, proved more suitable for two reasons. A, provide all-weather access, and B, Nepal had proven to be a trusted buffer state to both nations. This is the genesis of the notion of trilateral cooperation between China, Nepal and India. In no small measure, the euphoria of trilateralism arose with Prime Minister Vajpayee's historic visit to China in 2003, amidst the clamor and optimism about the renaissance of Asia in the new global economics and finance. A new phase in China-India bilateralism had begun. It was a time under President Jiang Zemin and President Wen Jiabao. China sought South-South cooperation, having even put aside $10 billion for development purposes. It was also the time when there was talk of a new multipolar world order with trilateralism between China, Russia, and India, and the formation of BRIC in 2009, this is without South Africa, and later called BRICS, to counter the domination by the US dollar. With the passage of time, the policy to be a transit economy from the infrastructure investment for transport connectivity shifted to wanting economic connectivity so that greater benefits ensue, leading to more rapid and widespread development. Currently, trilateralism has lost its steam owing to the change in India's mindset and its growing doubts about President Xi Jinping's China dream and China's peaceful rise, as strategized in the Silk Road to Europe, Maritime Silk Route, and also the Trans-Himalayan Economic Corridor. All being branded nowadays as OBOR, BRI, OBOR, BRI meaning the Belt Road Initiative. India senses a comprehensive encirclement of it by China with no sign of settlement or border disputes. This is my perception about how India looks currently at the idea of trilateralism. Additionally, the Chinese OBOR BRI initiative model of regional, sub-regional, and intra-regional integration of economies is seen by Indian analysts as being far too China-centric, and given the hegemonic relations between big and small powers would lead to unhealthy dependency of the smaller powers. For a model seeking a win-win scenario for all, the absence of multilateral approach where parties participate by subscribing to already available international conventions is a glaring lacuna in the OBR concept. This should include the accession, and I would like to again stress this point, because if you want to provide transit through Nepal to India and vice versa, we would like to insist that both India and China accede to the UN Convention on landlocked countries. And as you know, excepting Russia, none of the landlocked countries are signatories to this convention. I submit that given geopolitical realities, may I say, given the geopolitical realities, what should Nepal do? Nepal should leave to China and India to agree on making Nepal as a transit economy. In other words, I think it's time now that we do not spend so much time diplomatically trying to promote this concept, but rather leave it to the Indians and the Chinese to negotiate bilaterally whether it is a benefit to them. May I say that I have written an article on the OBOR, and the OBOR concept I had was that it was beneficial to India also, to all the Bimaro states of India, and especially Bihar, because at one time even the Bihari intellectuals were thinking of linking all the way from Paradeep, Jharkhand, Bihar, to Raxol, up to Kathmandu and the border into China, Tibet. So I always maintain that it has huge benefits to the Indians, Bimaro states of Bengal, of Bihar and UP. But that apart, this is the state where now we should give more time to promoting OBOR bilaterally. I submit that given the geopolitical realities, Nepal should, again I'm repeating, leave to China and India to agree on making Nepal as a transit economy. We should now give maximum priority in our diplomacy to bilateral OBOR, as agreed at the time of the visit of the PM Oli to China, including executing agreements on transit and fuel supplies. I think this is what our priority should lie, getting the agreements already agreed to implemented. Let me conclude with two related recommendations. The first recommendation is that we commence to do planning. We commence to do planning and pre-feasibility studies for each of the axes, namely Raswagadi, Kathmandu, Birganj as one economic corridor, and Raswagadi, Pokhara, Bhairava to the other economic corridor, to see what volume of traffic must be generated from within Nepal itself to make the rail project financially viable, so that the investment can be recouped in a reasonable time. To maximize social benefits from the two railway infrastructure projects, it is suggested and agreed to visit PM's OLI's economic feasibility, agree with China and undertake economic feasibility, also looking at the social cost benefits and all the fiscal and monetary incentives that are desired to promote this project, including, if I may add, as I was a finance minister, how this project could be a catalyst to develop our capital markets, be they the equity markets or the bond market. And now, because there are so many students here, I thought, it's time we talk about OBOR between Nepal and China in more detailed, in-depth studies and getting quantifiable data and analysis as to the costs, benefits, risks and opportunities arising from such an idea. So I'm proposing that we should examine comprehensively and do joint studies. I was happy that we have our colleague from Fudan University, it's a famous university of Shanghai, and we should together do joint studies looking at not just the trade analysis by volume or value, but also find out our revealed competitive advantages, so that because there's not much to trade in Nepal because it's such a low level production. So look at the revealed competitive analysis, to gravity modeling. Maybe it's a little too technical, but gravity modeling to estimate the amount of infection between the two cities that we want to link with, whether it's Lhasa, whether it's Yunnan, whether it's Chongqing, whether it's any other city that we wish to link with. And then we undertake supply chain potential analyses by surveying the private sector as to which industry they would like China to move into Nepal to take advantage of our low cost of wages and also the fact that their wages are rising in the labor-intensive industries. So in other words, to start a new flying geese that the Japanese created the revolution in industrial revolution of Northeast Asia through their flying geese. So the same thing could happen to our benefit. And then we also try to study the inter-industry, measure the inter-industry and trade of particular products. And also we do geographical simulation modeling to predict the long-term impact of infrastructure of each country. And they are known because the ADB has done this study. I've seen this kind of study being done in India, is the top think tanks of India. It's possible that we do it too, and all our universities can combine our brains to undertake this kind of work. And then lastly, and I would like to point out also that it is believed, I understand that 24 of the provinces in mainland China have their own OBOR plans. And we need to dialogue with these provinces like Qinghai, Sichuan, Yunnan, and Tibetan Autonomous region, including Chongqing, such a huge megapolis municipality, to get their perception on Nepal's potential for trade with them, investment from them and to them, and also joint venturing with them. It is time we went beyond generalities towards quantitative applied research and analysis in the quest for a win-win solution for mutual benefit. Thank you.
I thank Professor for being very specific in his remarks. So I'd like to request now Dr. Umesh Bhattarai. He is the ex-Brigadier General of Nepal Army, to present his presentations on trilateral cooperation, focusing on especially from a security perspective. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Umesh Bhattarai. Thank you.
Panelists, ladies and gentlemen, as Shyamji has said, and thank you very much, Shyamji, I will read this discourse in Nepal Foreign Policy Day, offered to breeze. When this topic was given to me, I had some reaction within myself, like how I should deal this topic, and from the security perspective and historical perspective. If I would be more critical, please never mind. And I will talk about the Nepalese interest more, rather than Chinese or Indian interest. Okay, no problem. If it will be there, then it will be much better. Anyway, as per the slide, I will deal upon, as per these bullets, basically, these are the topics. British perception of Tibet as buffer state. As in the last session, Professor Uddhavji was telling about historical prospect. And when we talk Nepal, India, China relation, if we don't talk about the Tibet and the British philosophy, then I think it will be injustice to our ancestors. East India Company envisaged Tibet as buffer prior to Nepal, between Central Asia and South Asia, to counter the growing interest of Russia that time in Central Asia and to South Asia. British wanted Tibet to remain independent. Tibet was protectorate state of China since 72, but control over this far western province had been increasingly weak that time. British Empire in India hence preferred a weak, independent Tibet, but had a fear from Russia, which was consolidating power in Central Asia. Political consequence in Nepal's stability. This we have talked much about, but what I perceive like nation's stability depends on its geopolitical and its commitment and perception towards international security. And we are not exception to this. According to Safiq Usman, geopolitics, and he is a Mauritius-based geopolitical expert who perceives like geopolitics is not a science, sometimes we mix up, but it is a discipline that analyzes various forces on a given territory in a specific space. We seldom forget this. That's why we think that it is a science. But of course, it may be science, but he emphasized on it is like some training. I will talk later. Geopolitics is a branch of knowledge which one has to be expert upon to become master of it. If geopolitics is discipline, we need to have a training that makes us willing to follow certain rules, otherwise to bear punishment if we break the rules. And we can correlate our past, why we have suffered. That is very important. Balance of power, critical to Nepal's stability. Balance of power is important to maintain stability. The deterrence effect itself controls one to another. The world is converting to multipolar. And sectarian powers are also emerging from unipolar, before it was bipolar. In this scenario, South Asia has got unique importance. Starting Russia to down China, India and Pakistan, there are 4 nuclear powers. One shares border with another. In fact, Nepal is surrounded by 3 nuclear powers: India, China, and in near vicinity, Pakistan. So it needs to have careful foreign policy to balance mostly 2 enormous neighbors, including US, which seldom sees Nepal from Indian prism. During the British rule in India, Nepal's feudal rulers managed to stay relatively independent by offering diplomatic and military support to the British. Due to various reasons, British didn't conquer Nepal, though it trapped it by supporting autocratic rulers to prolong their regime. Perceptual analysis on Nepal's survivability. Although rulers of Nepal were concerned to safeguard its sovereignty, we should not blame them, independence as well as freedom, they agreed to invaders' demand to secure their region. Nepal was aggressive itself to expand its territory up to 1816, which it was stopped by British and compelled to sign a treaty. At times when Nepal was in dire need of Chinese support during war with East India Company, the Qing dynasty declined. Similarly, when it needed British help during Sino-Nepal War in 1792, the British declined. This I highlighted because when we are in dire need, nobody will come. And I recall when Dr. Samburam Singhara was talking about there is no permanent foe or friend in nation's relation or in the national interest. Further to note, Nepal always aims to prove that cultural and intellectual influences from China and India have been equally important in shaping Nepali social value. And culture is factually nonsense, but psychologically it makes very good sense. I recall King Mahendra's speech, the first NAM summit in Belgrade. China's perception to its southern neighbors. There are many ups and downs, slide. There are many ups and downs in the history of South Asia, and mostly they underpin through Indo-China relations. Mao Zedong told a visiting delegation from Nepal in 1964 that the issue of war was not the border in Kashmir or in the McMahon line, but Nehru and Indian government believed that Tibet belonged to India. It is as per Bruce Riddell's book, JFK's Forgotten Crisis. Belt and Road Initiative and Nepal's position. Perhaps this is more important. China's One Belt, One Road concept is based on Old Silk Road. This road had helped China not only to expand trade, but also to influence people on its philosophy and religion. An example could be the spread of Buddhism in Afghanistan in the medieval period. Perhaps due to the fear of cultural transfer, some nations are negative to this concept, and little bit we too. But development is not possible without connectivity that we all know about over the trade among the nations. We have to be balanced on this. Nepal is landlocked with poor infrastructure and we lack self-dependency. Having very heavy dependence in trade with India, it is more than 80%, and repeated economic embargo, and this is the reality. It is in dire need of trade diversification. Through its northern neighbor China. So, OBOR is a right choice for Nepal to balance its trade and opportunity to explore connectivity with rest of the world. US-India military alliance after 2005 was basically focused to deny Chinese influence in South Asia. After the Deng Xiaoping's presidency in the decade of 80s, Chinese economy boomed to greatest elevation, up to 10%. Inspired to encompass larger segment, it is focused to develop President Xi Jinping's concept in Nepal and through to South Asia. As Nepal is India locked, this is very important and has been highlighted before, needs broader approach to expand it beyond. And how we can expand, this is the diplomatic discourse. With this, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umesh Bhattarai, for providing his remarks from security perspective and also contextualizing it from historical perspective. Now I'd like to call Dr. Pankaj Jha from Jindal University to put his remarks on trilateral cooperations from basically the Indian perspective. So I'd like to call Dr. Pankaj Jha. Thank you.
My thanks goes to AIDIA for inviting me over here, and I am representing Jindal Global University. I am a professor with the Jindal School for International Affairs. So all your students, you really are a word of applause from my side. Thanks for staying back. Now I'm a very hard hitter. I'm something like Dhoni who hits and then puts you on a thinking mode. Whenever we talk about trilateral cooperation between India, China and Nepal, the obvious return really comes that India is not cooperating. India is not taking cognizance of what are the Nepal's requirements as such. Let me start with one. In 1965, India didn't have the resources. India was a real poor country, didn't have the wherewithal to even feed its population. From 1965, India stopped calling itself a poor nation, and today we are a capable and proud nation. I would exhort all you young Nepalese to stop calling your country a poor nation. You are a proud nation and you are a capable nation. The term poor itself become very apologetic. For the last 60, 70 years, you say that you have been poor, but then you have the resources, you have the potential. But does the potential need to be reminded from the Indian side or from the Chinese side? No. What exactly is your potential you need to identify? When we talk about trilateral cooperation, what exactly are you really looking forward from India or China? What exactly can India give to you and what exactly can China suffice so that to make you more competent, more stable, and most of the Nepalis who try to settle abroad can come back to Nepal? Kindly ponder over these matters because that is important for the next generation to make Nepal a proud and a stable nation. It's strategically vantage point. From geographical point of view, it's a strategically vantage point. Now coming to the second aspect of it, trilateral cooperation over India is non-cooperating, India doesn't want to really buy the thing. India already have a more than 45 billion deficit with China. China is not opening its services sector for us. If you want that the transit should happen from Nepal, I'm sorry, I already have too much of deficit. My silk industry is closed, my toy industry is closed because of Chinese cheap exports to us. This is a serious matter for me. So if you see that India and China trade will transit from Nepal, I clearly say no. But this trade will happen if China contributes 10 paisa to that 1 rupee and you contribute 90 paisa to that. Because that will make Nepal stable, competent and capable. I'm open to that idea. When you talk about buffer and bridge, the term buffer is gone. We have missiles which can strike cities within 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Buffer is no more there. So let's get over this. The second aspect is that bridge. The bridge should be made by Nepalese. It should not be an Indian bridge or the Chinese bridge. The other aspect which comes, you want. Nepalese students, can they go to China and get educated over there? No. Their first preference is India. Do they want to understand, build capacity so that they don't become workers in Gulf rather than become more semi-skilled laborers all across the world? Who gives the skills? India. India is the knowledge base. China is the manufacturing base. Let's learn from both of them. It will make you capable enough. The third aspect is that, I'm very hard-hitting. I might be sounding very strange. But China has its own problem, similar like India has. The wages are rising. They want cheap labor. Which can provide the labor? Both for India and China. Bangladesh, Nepal. So are you skilled enough to really join the Chinese production line? Of course you might be, but it should serve your purpose. But let me remind you, you don't want environmentally polluting industries at your place. In India, we say no to Chinese polluting industries. Because your region is environmentally more fragile than any country in the world. Let's take this at the face value. The last point, and I will stop my case over here. Most of the things when we talk about trilateral cooperation, it never resonates in the track 1 dialogue. It only resonates at the track 2 dialogue. And track 2 dialogues are those people who are academics, scholars, practitioners, or former diplomats. Who listens to them? Nobody. When we talked about BIMSTEC, China should have really taken the whole of BIMSTEC and said, let's work together, let's bring the BIMSTEC together. Nepal would have been in, but they chose selectively. They chose BCIM. Can I ask why? BIMSTEC is non-starter, let's assume it. But China was a pioneer, it could happen something with regard to this. Also, when they talk about OBOR, the biggest criticism comes, India doesn't know what OBOR is. But I will raise 3 basic issues. OBOR is more about China funding every infrastructure project well enough. Said it, accepted. China is the only country which can substantiate, finance all these projects. But what are the terms of payment? What are the terms of interest? If a country refuses to pay the project, how are you going to take it back? Is it a neo-imperialist model which is in the offing? Nepal is very gung-ho about it, but talk to Sri Lanka, talk to many other countries across Africa, across Asia, what they feel about Chinese projects. There is unrest. Take the case of Myanmar. Take the case of many other countries. You read it, and then you decide about it. It's not me who is going to decide. It's the youth population who is going to decide about this. Employment, skill development, everything you will have to decide. Let me highlight 3 basic sectors that you can work on. First is with regard to, you have a huge hydropower potential. Very similar like many of the Central Asian countries. Explore it, develop it. Second is pharmaceuticals. You are in a hilly terrain, you can really develop this industry in the best possible way because you have the climate to do it. And our pharmaceutical industries imports from Chinese raw materials. Can they do something like this? And third, if you want a brand, China doesn't have a brand, India does have a few brands. But if these 3 countries can sit together and work out one global brand, something like Airbus, Boeing, in a different sector, we can work wonders. But then, the terms of engagement between the 3 countries should be decided mutually. It should not be Chinese Silk Road. It should be Asian civilizational route. Thank you.
Very thank you, Dr. Pankaj Jha, for providing his very straightforward and specific remarks. Session entitled. So now I would like to welcome our former ambassador to China, Mr. Rajeshwar Acharya, to put his remarks or ideas on this session. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Respected panelists and distinguished participants. I think much has been said earlier from the beginning. We have exhausted a lot of time from morning to evening. And I think there is very little to add to the deliberation or discussion that we have on the topics. However,
I will briefly touch upon 4 things. Number 1, Nepal-India relations. Number 2, Nepal-China relations. Number 3, India-China relations. And the last, possibility or the scope for trilateral cooperation. I think talking about Nepal-India relation, we are friends from ages. We are bound by culture, history, and so many things. India is Nepal's largest trading partner and one of the key investors. We have open border and are connected by land and rivers. We have government to government, people to people, and party to party relationship. Nepal has always benefited from India's support and assistance for meeting our socio-economic and infrastructure needs. Although we have some border problems with India and other minor problems that emerge occasionally at political, social, and economic fields, our relationship is stable and growing. It is also to be noted that the present leadership of India has floated the idea of neighborhood first policy, think east and act policy. I think that is a welcome gesture. So let me talk about Nepal-China relations in brief. China and Nepal also are close neighbors. Buddhism, trade and scholarly contacts have played a meaningful role in bringing our two countries and people closer. Our bond of friendship is based on mutual trust, respect and cooperation. China's support and assistance are helpful in meeting our socio-economic and developmental needs. China is Nepal's second largest trading partner and one of the key investors. Nepal is committed to one China policy and will not allow its territory to be used against any of our neighbors, China and India. Nepal and China have long back resolved their border problems, and there are no issues left to be resolved by history. We have government to government, people to people, and party to party relationship. But the people to people relationship is not that strong. We need to work on that in future. And it is a matter of great satisfaction to us that the Chinese president has shown interest, or the Chinese government has shown interest to extend the railway connection from Kerung to Kathmandu and then Pokhara and Lumbini. Similarly, we are equally excited by the Indian Railway Minister's remark that India is also prepared to extend cooperation for extending a railway from Indian border to Kathmandu. I think this is also a welcome gesture, and we appreciate the sentiment expressed by our immediate neighbors. Now let me touch upon very briefly on India-China relations. Prior to border war between India and China in 1962, India-China relation was excellent and called Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. After 26 years of the 1962 war, Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited China in 1988. Since then, China-India relationship is being normalized and growing for better and better, with increased cooperation in the fields of trade, investment and science and technology. Now both the countries have achieved greater mutual understanding, trust and confidence, and elevated their relationship to, I quote, strategic and cooperative partnership for peace and prosperity. This is a very remarkable achievement for building trust and opening the road for cooperation between India and China. Despite the unresolved border problem, both India and China are holding a number of bilateral meetings at various levels. They are competitors, yet friends. They also believe that there is enough space in the world for the countries to grow. Both the countries, they believe that the world is very large, the scope is wide. So it is not necessary, as we have discussed earlier also, that they need not be competitors. They have cooperated in a number of areas bilaterally and internationally and regionally. So there is enough space for both India and China to work and grow. In the early 1990s, China-India bilateral trade was just 434 million US dollar. Now it is approaching 100 billion US dollar very soon. So this shows that although Dr. Pankaj Jha highlighted that there is trade deficit of India with China about 45 billion US dollars. I think that can be bridged. That can be bridged by your bilateral understanding and cooperation. Similarly, the possibility of trilateral cooperation comes here. I will go very briefly on that also. The last point that I want to make is trilateral cooperation. We know that bilateral relations based on trust, mutual respect and cooperative partnership are essential elements for trilateral or multilateral cooperation. It is very essential to build trust and understanding bilaterally first. So it may take some time, nevertheless, we need to go ahead with this thinking, with this proposal, so that in near future we can be moving ahead with this point. The point of discussion today is about the need for promoting peace, stability, security and prosperity collectively. The trilateral cooperation under the framework of CNIEC, China, Nepal, India Economic Corridor, cannot only be helpful in reducing poverty, unemployment and fighting against terrorism, but also help reduce problems related to climate change and its negative effect on Himalayan ecosystem, among others. Scholars and development thinkers have predicted that 21st century belongs to Asia. The remarkable progress achieved by both China and India over the past 3-4 decades is before the world to see. India is advocating for lookist and activist policy, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is giving emphasis on Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. This is a very welcome statement and policy pronouncement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So this shows that collective development through collective efforts is the need of the hour. India believes in it. China's foreign policy is also guided by Go West and Neighborhood First policy. I think this type of policy pronouncement adopted by our great neighbors that gives room for trilateral cooperation. This is our belief. Nepal believes in that. Both the giant economies have reiterated their commitment to help ensure collective development in their neighborhood. Nepal is eager to be a partner in sharing benefits and prosperity through over CNIEC and AIIB. Nepal, a land-linked country situated between China and India, wishes for fostering greater connectivity with both friendly neighbors and help promote peace, security, understanding and development of the people of CNI region, China, Nepal, India region. The concept of trilateral cooperation is not new to our countries. Historically, our three countries have benefited a lot through the intra-port trade taking place among Tibet Autonomous Region of China, Nepal and India. Thus for decades, even centuries, Nepal acted as a gateway for promoting trans-Himalayan trade and people-to-people contact between India and China. Today, China is the second largest economy in the world, only after the United States, with a GDP of more than 13 trillion US dollar. India is also growing fast and has become the seventh largest economy with a GDP of 3 trillion US dollar. It is to be noted that both India and China are coming closer in a number of regional and international issues. They include, among others, climate change and global warming, fighting terrorism, increasing trade, investment and people-to-people contact. The leaders of both countries seem to promote their personal relations for well-being of the people of their respective countries also. We should note that when Chinese President Xi Jinping visited India, he was welcomed and hosted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at his home state, hometown, Gujarat. Similarly, President Xi Jinping welcomed Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Xi'an, which is the home state of President Xi. This shows that how much care and honor they want to give to their friends who are heading for making India and China and also the regional countries around them, the neighboring countries around them, more peaceful, stable and developed. So this is a welcome gesture for the trilateral cooperation. Hopefully the wisdom of the two leaders will positively contribute in promoting greater understanding and help ensure peace, stability and development in the trans-Himalayan region. I firmly believe that a peaceful, stable and developed Nepal is in the overall interest of both China and India. When Nepal becomes economically strong, she will effectively ensure the core interests of both her neighbors. Because we are LDC countries and economically we are way behind than our neighbors. So we hope that through trilateral cooperation, Nepal can also benefit from economically and then get some prosperity so that we can cater to the core interest of both China and India more effectively and with close cooperation and collaboration with them in a number of areas. So recently, UN Security Council has also endorsed OBRB. This is an encouraging move and hopefully wisdom will prevail and I think the leaders of our region will come closer and give impetus to the trilateral cooperation that Nepal is willing to have. And I think this is not only the wish of Nepal, but the wish of the leaders of both our neighbors, because they believe that neighborhood first they believe in neighborhood first policy so that we can benefit collectively. Before I end my observation, I want to quote an Indian diplomat, Mr. Jaideep Majumdar, who says, and I quote, "For India, China and Nepal, geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, and economics has made us partners. Those who are joined by geography, history and economics cannot but work together for common benefit." Thank you very much.